Alrighty, good morning, good afternoon, everybody tuning in. My name is Kyle. I'm with High Point Scientific, and we are holding a test stream of the solar eclipse tomorrow. So this is just a quick test stream to make sure all of our equipment is working as it should. We are live just outside of Tucson, or excuse me, not Tucson, Arizona, excuse me. We are live just outside of Santa Fe, New Mexico. We are here to hopefully give you guys a good view tomorrow. So we are just setting up to test out our equipment. If you have any questions for us, the live streamers, feel free to ask them. I'd be more than happy to answer them. Tegan, if you can hear me, tell us a little bit about what we're trying to do here, and also tell us a little bit about High Point Scientific.
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear. Are you able to receive me as well?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear, Tegan.
Okay, great. Well, yes, today, as you said, we're doing a kind of a pre-test for tomorrow. Tomorrow's the annular eclipse that's going to transit over the western half of the United States, and those lucky to live in the western half of the United States are going to have clear skies for the most part, it seems. And here in Cincinnati, we will be experiencing rain, so that is a little bit unfortunate, but I'm happy to have you there because I'm going to be able to experience this and live it vicariously through you tomorrow.
Thank you, Tegan. Yeah, I'm really excited for this solar eclipse. The last time I saw a solar eclipse was in October of 2017, so this is just going to be quite remarkable for me. Being just outside of Santa Fe, we are expecting to see the annular solar eclipse. We're not exactly expecting it to be a perfect ring because I am kind of on the edge of totality. Actually, totality would be the wrong word because it's actually an annular solar eclipse. We are expecting there to be something of a ring around the sun, but we're not expecting it to be perfectly centered. That being said, we are expecting potentially to be able to see something like Bailey's beads, for example. That's something we would normally see during a total solar or lunar eclipse, but here we're expecting to see it just because I'm kind of on the edge of the solar eclipse, and we should be able to see some of that sunlight glinting through the mountainous regions on the edge of the moon. So if you have any questions about the solar eclipse, feel free to ask, and I'll be more than happy to answer them.
I remember seeing the Bailey's beads in 2017, and it was you can even catch a small glimpse of them with your naked eye, and it's a very distinct pink purple glimmers just around the surface, much more pronounced through a telescope. So that would be really awesome if you're able to capture something like that tomorrow.
It's going to be really exciting tomorrow for sure. We are expecting the annular solar eclipse from my vantage point outside of Santa Fe to last for about 4 minutes. That is going to be 4 minutes where we're going to see the ring effect. Again, if you're just tuning in, my name is Kyle. I'm with High Point Scientific. I am joined with Tegan here, and we are holding a test stream for tomorrow's annular solar eclipse. So if you have any questions about the solar eclipse tomorrow, feel free to ask, and we'll be more than happy to answer them. And again, we are expecting that annular solar eclipse to begin at first contact roughly around 9 a.m. Mountain Time. That is 11 a.m. Eastern Time tomorrow. The annular or the partial phase of the annular eclipse will last for about an hour and a half, and then eventually we will reach the second contact where the moon will be fully within the disk of the sun, again lasting for 4 minutes, and then from 4 minutes on afterwards we will reach third contact where the moon will move away from the sun and we will once again be in a partial solar eclipse. We got a question from Rosie Snowdrop. They're asking, is the solar eclipse in the United States? Yes, it is, as a matter of fact. This is the first solar eclipse visible over the United States since 2017. So it has been, 6 years since the last solar eclipse over the United States? There was a partial solar eclipse visible over portions of the United States back in June of 2021, but this is the first sort of cross-country eclipse since 2017, and I also believe this is the first annular eclipse visible over the United States since 2012.
So it's also important to note that the only people who will experience totality are in a very small path along the western United States. There are several states that it goes from, kind of through Texas and up through Oregon, I believe. But the other Midwest and eastern sides of the United States will be able to experience the eclipse to a degree. There's not going to be total coverage. You're not going to see the full annular eclipse. But for instance, here in Ohio, I think we have about a 40% eclipse. So when you look up at the sun during the maximum eclipse in the east, you will see what looks like a crescent sun. But we will not be able to experience the full eclipse here in the Midwest.
Indeed, it will. That is disappointing. But for those tuning in to see the eclipse, you will first be able to see the annular solar eclipse beginning over the coast of Oregon. It will move southwestwards or southeastwards towards Nevada. After it passes through Nevada, it will go through Utah, portions of Arizona, New Mexico, which is where this live stream is being held from, and then on to portions of Texas. San Antonio, for example, will be within the path of the totality for the annular solar eclipse. Gotta stop calling it totality, because that's not what this is. This is not a total solar eclipse. This is an annular solar eclipse. But that will move out into the Gulf of Mexico and into South America after that. But even if you're not within the path of the annular solar eclipse, you can expect to see something tomorrow. Pretty much everywhere in the United States will be witness to a partial solar eclipse.
Now, for us in a partial solar eclipse, I'm not sure the percentage of eclipse that we have to experience, but I know the phenomenon that the shadows on the ground start to kind of look like crescent moons as well. Like if you look through the sun through the coming through the leaves, and those shadows, when they hit the ground, they kind of look like little moons. Will that happen around a 40% eclipse? Do you know?
It absolutely should. You should see something like little, maybe, I don't know how to describe it, fat crescents on the ground. I think that's probably the best way to describe it. You're probably not going to see them very well. For people who live out in Oklahoma, for example, for people who live in Arkansas, you will absolutely be able to see the shadows on the ground during the eclipse. So if you're just tuning in, again, my name is Kyle. I'm joined with Tegan here at High Point Scientific. We are doing a pre-solar eclipse live question and answer ahead of tomorrow's annular solar eclipse. We are set up just outside of Santa Fe, New Mexico, where we are within the path of the annular solar eclipse. We will be expecting tomorrow to see, beginning at 9 a.m. Mountain Time, the disk of the moon move in front of the sun. And then about an hour and a half later, we will see the ring of fire in the sky. So that'll be an incredibly exciting event. For those tuning in, because I'm not seeing any comments coming in so far, let me know if you have any questions about the solar eclipse. Also, just to let me know how the audio quality is doing, if I'm coming in good, if you guys can hear me okay. Your feedback is very valuable to us. Miranda Bowling is asking, will it be seen on the East Coast? Unfortunately, the annular solar eclipse will not be visible, but a partial solar eclipse will be visible tomorrow on the East Coast of the United States.
And I know there's some great sources online. If you look up the eclipse map, you will be able to see the percentage of eclipse for your given location. So if you live on the East Coast, like I said, I think it's about a 20 or 30%, give or take. Have to double check our sources there, but.
All right, good news. David and Paul both saying our audio is coming in clear. Really appreciate that. It's been definitely a technical challenge to get this live stream up for you guys, but again, we are expecting to, be able to bring you guys views tomorrow with this. We are actually using a Starlink satellite to be able to provide the live views tomorrow. So if we do drop occasionally, it will be because of Starlink as we switch between views, of satellites. Tegan, for a quick second, can you take over for commentary for just a minute while I check the health of the stream?
Yes, absolutely. So we should address the views coming in right now that Kyle has. He's currently using, I believe, a dedicated astronomy camera. It's a ZWO 183 MC and a 135 millimeter Canon or Rokinon camera lens, I believe. And so this is the field of view that is projected here live on the YouTube channel. And this is the disk of the sun. This is the solar disk. And you can see some sunspots, actually, and they're pretty prominent. So hopefully tomorrow we will also get a view. These sunspots may not be in the same location. They will have slightly drifted across the surface of the sun by then. But we should be able to see these exact sunspots tomorrow during the eclipse, and they will slowly fade away as the moon covers the face of the sun and creates the annular eclipse.
Hey Tegan, I am back, and everything looks like it's running good. We have a question on Facebook, and we're being asked, I bought the Batter solar film from High Point Scientific and made a custom filter for my 8-inch aperture Dobsonian. Anything I have to be careful for while pointing it at the sun, or how to preserve the filter? Tegan, what do you think?
Make sure it is tightened down, because you definitely do not want any sunlight coming through accidentally through into your mirror. Definitely only do this if you feel comfortable, if you feel safe. If you do have any questions, specific questions about installation, then I would recommend that, again, asking through YouTube comments. The Beta solar film filter, if you have it tightened down correctly around the OTA, and there's no holes in the solar filter, then you should be good to go. It is important that solar viewing can be very dangerous, but also can be very cool, especially during an eclipse. So proper precautions is crucial. So as long as you have everything tightened down, there's no potential for the solar filter to accidentally fall off, then I say happy viewing.
I'm reminded of the words of my astronomy professor from my days at university. He always said, never look at the sun. Anytime we talk about the sun, always open up with that statement. So never look at the sun unless you have proper viewing filters and your filters does not have any damage. Proper ISO certified solar filters. Yes. Anything less than that, do not look at the sun through it. The only time you can look at the sun is during a total solar eclipse. Tomorrow is an annular solar eclipse. Because of that, a decent portion of the sun will not be covered by the moon, and you will be blinded if you stare at the peak of the annular solar eclipse for too long. You must watch the annular solar eclipse through a solar filter, be it a eclipse glasses, be it a mylar filter, or anything like that. I have a question here from Paul, and they're asking, is it recommended to cover my spotting scope while looking at the sun? I heard it could be damaging to the crosshairs. Absolutely cover your spotting scope up if you're going to look at the sun with it. If you have a filter, you do not look at the sun with your spotting scope without a solar filter.
I think maybe he was also mentioning while he's not using the. So yes, you want the spotting scope covered if you're looking through it, but also when you're not looking through it, keep it covered as well, because you might accidentally catch a glimpse of the sun through the eyepiece, and that can also just be as damaging. So any optical device pointed towards the sun, whether it be a telescope, a spotting scope, even a camera lens, needs a solar filter, because a high-powered camera lens can also fry your camera sensor if you're not careful. So every device pointed at the sun needs to be protected.
Indeed. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the gear that's going to be used for this live stream. We talked a little bit about before, but to go more in depth into it, I am using a special type of astrophotography camera called a ZWO ASI 183MC Pro. It is a 20 megapixel sensor capturing about 19 frames per second. And like a DSLR, it's a color camera, so it is perfect for live streaming a solar eclipse. So it is a great all-around astrophotography camera. I love using it. The camera itself is connected to a 135mm f2 camera lens. In front of the lens is a 90mm solar filter, which is made out of mylar and is protecting my camera sensor from being impacted by the sun's intense light. If I took off the mylar filter, my camera would actually be destroyed by the intense light from coming from the sun. The Mylar filter acts as a neutral density filter, blocking out 99.999% of the light from the sun. This is why it's safe to look at the sun through a Mylar filter that meets a specifically designed standard. The camera and camera lens is sitting on top of an Ioptron Skyguider Pro. This is what's called an equatorial mount, meaning that it's aligned with the north celestial pole to be able to move along celestial coordinates instead of altazimuth and altitude. What this basically means is that instead of tracking the sky in 2 axes, I need only to track in 1. This little mount is a great travel companion. I actually took this mount, this camera lens, this camera, onto a carry-on bag from Orlando all the way to Santa Fe with a connecting flight, and nothing was damaged. So that was fantastic for sure.
Kyle, speaking of the camera, what software are you currently used to capture this right now?
That is a great question. So I'm using actually ASI Studios ASI Cap to be able to bring these live views to you.
Is there a way to color correct? I don't know if there's a slightly green hue here to the sun.
Let's take a look. Yeah, I am seeing a max that is slightly higher in green. Let's see. What if I check this, see what happens? Well, I turned it yellow now.
Increase those red tones a little bit, and I think we might be able to get a nice oranger hue here.
Good deal. That I made it nice and orange, so that should be showing up here in a second. It was coming a little bit green, but if the oranger colors here look better, that's definitely what we'll be using. So what do you think? What do you think, Deacon?
Well, let's see. I'm still live. I'm not sure if it's translated. Oh, there we go. Okay. Yeah, you could. I think by making that switch, I feel like I can see a bit more surface detail. The sunspots look a little bit more prominent, and I feel like I can see the granules, but that also may be pixelization on my screen. So, but you have a nice oranger tint to it.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree. The orange tint is what we'll use for tomorrow. Got a question from Conrad Sanders. They're asking, what are my options to get the entire image of the sun using an 8-inch Smith Cassegrain without having to use my eyepiece with my iPhone?
Well, I know that if you hook your a DSLR up with an APS-C size sensor and a focal reducer, then you can get the full disk of the moon and the sun in your field of view. But as far as the iPhone goes, still you will need to use a solar filter here. From my experience, I would say a 20 millimeter eyepiece, maybe a 28 millimeter eyepiece, and the iPhone would get you a nice view, the full disc. I have not used this combination personally, an iPhone and a SCT and an eyepiece to image the full disk of the sun or the moon, from what I remember. So I would recommend a wider field eyepiece to start, and then if it's too wide, slowly bring the magnification up until you're happy with your field of view.
Good deal. So yeah, people, please feel free to keep asking your questions about the eclipse that is going to be happening tomorrow. We got a question from coming in from Facebook, and they're asking, will this be visible from South Africa? Unfortunately, no. This eclipse is entirely going to be from the annular solar eclipse will only be visible from North and South America. Tegan, do we still have you?
Yes, I am here.
Okay, good deal. Here. All right. So I'm just waiting for some more questions to come through. Now, for those of you who have tuned into streams in the past, you might recognize a lunar eclipse, for example, as being when the moon passes in front of the shadow of the Earth. During a lunar eclipse, the moon appears to turn red as the shadow of the Earth passes in front of it. Tomorrow, however, what we will see is the moon pass in front of the sun and eclipse the sun. Now, this will not be a total solar eclipse like the one we saw back in August 2017. Rather, this will be an annular solar eclipse. But I've used that term annular. But what exactly is the difference, you're wondering? Well, that's a great question. An annular solar eclipse is really a type of partial solar eclipse. While the moon will pass directly in front of the sun, it does not completely block out of the sun. Instead, the sun will be transformed from my vantage point just out of Santa Fe, New Mexico, into a beautiful ring in the sky that you can see with your eclipse glasses. But you might be asking, well, why a ring instead of a total eclipse? Well, that's another great question. The moon actually orbits in what's called an ellipse. You can think of an ellipse as sort of a oval-shaped orbit around the Earth. The part of the ellipse that's furthest away from the Earth is called apogee, while the point closest to the Earth is called perigee. Eclipses close to perigee will completely block out the light from the sun because the moon is closer to the Earth. However, eclipses closer to apogee will not block out all the light from the sun simply because the moon is too far away to do so.
Yeah, nice tidbit of information. It's sometimes when you see a solar eclipse or even a lunar eclipse, you don't necessarily think of the interactions between the planet, the sun, the moon as they're happening. You can see what's happening, but you don't. Sometimes it's hard to visualize what is happening between such three large celestial bodies that are so far apart. It's so cool that we get to experience this too from Earth. The fact that we're here live streaming a solar eclipse it's cool. It's really cool.
It really is something special, Tegan. It's going to be exciting tomorrow to see what unfolds. Tegan, we were talking about this before the stream even started, but out here outside of Santa Fe, we kind of are on the edge of the peak of the annular solar eclipse, so we're not expecting a perfect ring around the sun tomorrow. Instead, what we're going to see is sort of a kind of a lopsided ring. But if we get lucky, because of this, we might be able to see what's called Bailey's beads tomorrow. So Bailey's beads is essentially when the light of the sun, just before it passes behind the rim of the moon, it passes through the canyons and valleys and mountains on the edge of the moon. Because of that, we see the light shining through those mountains and canyons, and they look like little beads on the side of the moon. So that is going to be an extremely, extremely exciting thing to see, because that's not something we normally see during an annular solar eclipse. That's something more associated with a total solar eclipse. So if I see that, I will try to get you those views as safely as possible.
We have Conrad asking again about time and date for totality. Kyle, I believe. Remind me at Mountain Time where you're at in New Mexico. What is in path of totality? What is the time of eclipse start and eclipse totality?
That is a great question. So the eclipse will begin at roughly 9:15 a.m. Mountain Time. It will last for about an hour and a half until a little after 10:30 a.m. Mountain Time, where the annular solar eclipse will occur. And then after which that will last for about 4 minutes. After those 4 minutes has elapsed, the moon will move away from the rim of the sun and will be completely, we will see what we saw in the morning in reverse as the moon begins to move away from the disk of the sun. Good deal. Okay, so while this eclipse will be certainly a really exciting one, solar eclipses are not exactly rare events. At least 2 eclipses happen on average per year somewhere in the world. A similar annular eclipse occurred on June 10, 2021 over Canada and Greenland. However, that eclipse was very, very early in the morning. It was not visible to nearly as broad of a range of people. For those tuning in from places like Bangladesh or Malaysia, you might remember the December 26, 2019 annular solar eclipse. That eclipse also reached a huge number of people despite not being a total solar eclipse. But this eclipse is exciting for the United States because it crosses from the west coast all the way to the Gulf Coast, following a path that is reminiscent of the August 21st, 2017 total solar eclipse that I'm sure we all remember. The
Hmm.
annular eclipse will begin first on the west coast of Oregon, crossing over cities like Eugene and Medford. Then the eclipse will begin to head southwest into Nevada, crossing over Winnemucca and Battle Mountain. After that, the eclipse will make its way into Utah, passing over Glen Canyon National Park and Canyonlands National Park, before making its way into Arizona and New Mexico, where the stream is being held outside of Santa Fe, New Mexico. Those in Albuquerque, just south of this viewing location, will be the largest city in the path of eclipse. People here will see a perfect ring of fire with your eclipse glasses. And I'm certainly, those out enjoying the Balloon Fiesta tomorrow will be enjoying a fantastic view. Here just south of Santa Fe, the eclipse will begin at roughly 9:15 a.m. That's what we were just saying earlier, and will culminate in an annular eclipse beginning at 10:36 a.m. Mountain Time. After passing my viewing location, the eclipse will move into Texas, passing over Odessa. While making its march to the Gulf Coast, it will pass over San Antonio at about 11:50 a.m. Central Time before heading on out into the Gulf over Corpus Christi, making its way into Central America.
I think as totality approaches, um, I'm most excited to see the slow progression, and I felt this way about the 2017 solar eclipse when I was able to view that in Wyoming. The slow progression of totality, especially when you are there. So I envy you, Kyle. Is really just it's it's really cool to experience, and being able to see the moon slowly cover the disk of the sun tomorrow is, I think, what I'm most looking forward to. Even though I don't get to experience it in New Mexico, it's still going to be a pretty cool experience here.
Indeed. I'm really excited because in 2017, what I noticed happening was as the eclipse was progressing, I noticed that the temperature was dropping. The few clouds that were in the sky, from my perspective in Etowah, Tennessee, the temperature that began to fade, and I also noticed the bugs and the crickets coming out. That day it was 86 degrees and the temperature dropped all the way into the low 70s during the total solar eclipse. So the solar eclipse is not just a visual experience, it is also something to be felt. I distinctly remember this feeling, and I've talked to other eclipse observers too who felt the same way. Is during the 2017 eclipse, I almost felt like the shadow of the moon. I could feel it. Kind of that feeling you get when you're next to a really tall building, like you're in the shadow of something really big. You can kind of almost feel it, the presence of the moon fall over you. And that's something I'm wondering if I'll be feeling again tomorrow, even though it's an annular solar eclipse. I'm wondering if some of those emotions and feelings I will be experiencing again out here in Santa Fe.
That was one of the things that stood out most to me, besides the drastic temperature differential at the time of totality in 2017, when I would say around 90% 90% coverage to totality. Everything became very dark, and almost had like a purple gray hue to it, and you did feel like you were kind of encompassed by a large shadow, and it's a very unworldly experience, and it's something that you really have to experience it to understand what you and I are, how it feels, what you and I were able to experience. It's definitely if you can go and experience the one in 2024, we highly recommend it, because it's undescribable.
It really is. So for those joining who might not be familiar with us, High Point Scientific, I wanted to give a little bit of background about us. We are the largest retailer of telescopes and astrophotography gear in the United States. Our team of experts have, for the last 150 years of combined experience serving the amateur astronomy and astrophotography community. We are all super passionate about astronomy and astrophotography, and we are here to share our love of the universe and all of our knowledge with you. Again, if you're just tuning in, feel free to ask any questions in the chat about what you can expect to see during tomorrow's annular solar eclipse stream. Also, feel free to put in the chat where you're tuning in from. I always love to seeing where people are going to be watching across the world. Kathy is asking, is this eclipse going to be visible in Texas? Kathy, you are in total luck because, yes, you will see the annular solar eclipse in Texas. As a matter of fact, Texas will have the best view of anywhere in the world because I believe that the eclipse is going to be peaking over Texas. I'll have to double check that before tomorrow.
I think you're right. It's Corpus Christi is actually the place, I think, where it will be peaking.
Indeed. Yeah, so out in Texas, you are going to be able to see a beautiful view of the solar eclipse tomorrow. You can expect it to begin at roughly 10:15 a.m. Mountain Time, Central Standard Time, or Daylight Time, excuse me. We haven't quite switched over to Standard Time. And then you can expect to see the annular solar eclipse at about 11:35 a.m. Central Time. So yes, Texas is in huge luck. San Antonio, Corpus Christi, Odessa, places like that are directly in the path of the annular solar eclipse. But what's also really exciting, in my opinion, because while this eclipse is the first since 2017, we are being treated to a rare back-to-back double feature solar eclipse because we have another solar eclipse coming up in April of next year. That will be the total solar eclipse. So in 2024, April 8th, 2024, a total solar eclipse will be visible over the United States again. And this one will be even longer than the one in 2017. And during that one, unlike the eclipse tomorrow, the sun will be completely blocked out by the moon, and we will see the corona, the prominences, everything during that. And during that time, it'll be safe to take off the eclipse glasses. Now, keep in mind, because tomorrow is an annular solar eclipse, it is not going to be safe at any point to take off your eclipse glasses. But for the 2024 eclipse, it is going to be absolutely visible. The corona, all of that. You'll see the stars come out. And I'm actually curious to see tomorrow if any of the stars will come out too, because we'll be pretty close to, I think, around 95% blocked. We might see like Venus come out, so that'll be really exciting to see with my own eyes, and I'll obviously be reporting that as it happens.
I remember how surprised I was, even very close, 95% fatality in 2017. Still, how bright the sun is, and how I assumed it would be much darker, around 95% totality, but it's I don't remember seeing any stars or Venus or Mercury out, but I think it was, besides the temperature drop, you may be able to see the brighter planets, Kyle. It's hard to say, but I specifically remember it being still pretty bright, around 95% totality. It wasn't until about 98 or 99% is when I started to really see a quick drop in darkness.
Indeed, yeah, and that's exactly why it's not safe to look at the eclipse during an annular solar eclipse, because that 5% that's not blocked out by the moon could still blind you. Absolutely. Another thing that'll happen tomorrow is, in addition to seeing all the really cool and funky shadows on the ground, you will also be able to see, gosh, what was I going to say? In addition to seeing that, you'll see, actually, I'm drawing a blank on what you'll see.
That's okay. It'll come to you.
Yeah, I'm sure it will. I had the thought in my head and just snapped out of my head right as I was saying it. I'm sure it'll pop up again. But if you're actually looking if you don't have any eclipse glasses or solar filters or anything like that, if they're all sold out in your area, there's actually a safe way to observe the eclipse with just a cereal box. What you can do is actually cut a hole into a cereal box and then cut the side out. And then on the other end of the cereal box, you can put down a white piece of cardboard or a white piece of paper, for example. And then on the other end of the cereal box, you can drill a very, very small hole. And we're talking really small, like 2 millimeters in diameter. And what you're creating is essentially a pinhole projection. And you'll actually, if you point that small 2 millimeter hole at the sun during the eclipse, you'll see a projection of the sun on that white piece of paper on the end of the cereal box.
Mhm.
Good deal.
So, back to your point about the solar eclipse in 2024. Is that visible from your hometown in Florida? I don't believe it is. It kind of goes up from Texas up north towards New York and Maine.
Yeah, no, Florida unfortunately is going to be missing out on the 2024 eclipse.
So,
Um,
yeah,
um,
I might be the one holding the live stream there. When I checked the solar eclipse map, what I found is that the path of totality is one street away from where my house currently sits. So if I were to view the eclipse here in my backyard, technically I would only see a very, very, very small diamond ring, and I would not be able to see totality. I'm about half a mile away from the point of totality, so I might make a little trek north in order to view that. But I would only have to travel a couple miles to experience it.
lucky.
Yeah, I
I'm
feel.
very you are one of to have a solar eclipse pass directly over you and have a strong interest in astronomy is probably some of the best coincidence in the possible. I
It,
hope the weather that day cooperates for you because you're going to be in for quite the show.
no pun intended, but it seems like the stars will align that day, or the star will align that day. I hopefully I'm thinking I would like to make it up to Indiana, uh, a town where a lot of my family is from. They're in the very middle of the path of totality, so maybe a good viewing spot up there, and hopefully clear skies. It's April in the Midwest, so there's about a 50-50 chance.
Indeed. Olivia is asking, where can we see the solar eclipse in 2024? And we were just talking about that earlier. To recap, the 2024 total solar eclipse will begin over Mexico, if I'm not mistaken. It'll actually begin out in the Pacific Ocean. It'll cross the coast of North America over Mexico, and then it will cross Texas, move over Waco, if I'm not mistaken. Waco, Uvalde, and cities like that will be able to see the 2024 solar eclipse. Then move on into Arkansas. Um, After that, it'll pass over Carbondale, Illinois, which is actually where the 2017 solar eclipse passed over. So, folks in Carbondale, Illinois, will be able to have the incredible coincidence of seeing two total solar eclipses in their city in less than a decade. That is extraordinary. After which, it'll move through Ohio, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
Portions of it'll move over Ohio, over Tegan's location. Tegan's in Ohio. Uh, People in Pennsylvania, just outside of Pittsburgh, for example, Edinburgh, Pennsylvania, places like that, Erie, will have a great show of the eclipse. After that, I'll move into New York, then finally into Canada. So that'll be super exciting to see.
Kyle, I mentioned on our live view right now, we can see some sunspots. Tomorrow, these are going to be visible in about the same general vicinity as they are right currently.
Correct. Correct.
Move
Yeah,
very across.
it might move a little bit. The sun does rotate. I think
Right.
it's like a 25-day rotational period, if I'm not mistaken. But the
Oh,
chat can correct me if I'm mistaken. But yeah, you will see the sunspots in roughly the same location, and it will be really good to see.
now, I don't know if it's just my screen, but and you have the better view there. But you see the largest sunspot to the left. Um, it looks just bottom left of that, and maybe a little bit up to the top left of that. There's some lighter patches on the. I don't know if that's just pixelation on my part, or if that's just variable manual on the.
Actually, Tegan, because the sun's directly into my laptop screen, I can
Hard to
hardly
say.
see anything. So you actually have a much better view than I do. So
That's okay.
if that's what you're seeing, I believe you. I'm having I only see I see three big sunspots, and then I see a couple smaller ones too. May have to dial in my focus a little bit to get a little bit of a sharper view. We got a comment from Paul, and they're saying, I also bought my 12-inch Dob from High Point as well. Have a blast exploring everything in the cosmos that has been above me for my entire life, but never took the time to appreciate what is all out there. Well, we thank you for that comment, and we certainly appreciate you. And we're glad to have helped in your discovery of the wonderful universe in which we live. Rooster in Observatory is saying, I have a C-Star S50 ready to cover the eclipse tomorrow, or the clouds tomorrow. Well, I hope you have a good view of the eclipse tomorrow. Jones, just a comment, not a question, just says awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it.
The C-Star is a great source to view the solar eclipse. Absolutely, the nice solar filter provides, from my experience, so very nice solar photos and solar video. So that's going to be a really cool experience.
Indeed.
And as for the AD12, I was able to get the AD12 out the other night and view Saturn, and it's spectacular as always.
Indeed, Tegan, you talked a little about the C-Star S50. Would you recommend that for viewing an eclipse based on your experience using it?
Yes, with the included solar filter, the views are sharp. The video is steady. I think I got around 30 to 35 frames per second. And you can, stack the photos, take them and process them in your own way. And you have manipulation that way if that's something that you'd like to do. Or it stays tracking the sun very well once you have it aligned. And then you can change the slowing speed to solar or lunar, and it stays right in the center of your field of view for very long, extended periods of time. And it's a perfect way to view the eclipse. Absolutely.
Indeed. Yeah, I'm really excited for people who have the opportunity to use that telescope. I know that's a new release coming from ZWO, and I'm very excited to see how sharp the views will be through that. It looks like it'll be an amazing resource.
Yeah, we do have our full review on the C-Star, and I did some solar and talked about how that works with in regards to detail and it was very impressive.
For sure.
And there's other smart telescopes out there like the Vanos Vespera that are also nice options.
Those are very good options indeed. If you're just tuning in, this live streaming is being brought to you by High Point Scientific, the largest retailer of telescopes and astrophotography gear in the U.S. I've been working with the team here for quite some time, and they 100% offer the best service and recommendations out there of all the telescopes and astrophotography retails out there. It's been a pleasure working with High Point Scientific for sure. We are setting up to do a test live stream right now of the annular solar eclipse. So this is not the annular solar eclipse. The annular solar eclipse is not happening until tomorrow, but we are simply setting up just to test out the gear. I'm actually using a Starlink satellite to bring these views to you all. So if you occasionally see drops, not that they'll happen commonly, but you might occasionally see a drop frame or two, you can expect that because of Starlink switching over to different satellites in the area. So it doesn't look like on my end it's happened very much, but if it does happen, that will be why. Now, have you ever wondered why eclipses don't happen every month? Now, it would stand to reason that the moon must pass in the sun every new moon. However, this is not the case. This is because the moon's orbit is inclined from the ecliptic, or the path the planets all take around the sun. Because of this, the moon may pass either below the sun from the Earth's perspective, or above the sun. If these orbits were perfectly coplanar, however, then we'd see an eclipse every single month. So that tilt to the moon's orbit is why we are not able to see an eclipse every month. And as much as I would love to see a solar eclipse every month, I think just how things work out right now and how they're just rare enough to where they don't become ordinary or commonplace, but they're also just like common enough to be able to, you can see 5 or 6 of them in your lifetime if you're really dedicated to it.
I think we're also situated with the Earth and the Moon being 400 times smaller than the Sun, but also the Sun being 400 times farther away than the Moon. We may be the only body in our solar system that actually experiences a full total solar eclipse. I think that's right. I'm not sure about the moons of Saturn or Jupiter and how far or close they are in size, and how that compares. But experiencing a total solar eclipse, where the disk of the moon is exactly the same size as the disk of the sun, is extremely rare, and definitely a sight to behold.
Indeed. I see a question from Talk Time Studios on YouTube, and they're asking, I recently got an 8-inch Orion F4 Skyview. How can I best collimate it? Tegan, do you want to answer that?
Yes. As far as collimating a Newtonian, there's multiple ways. There's Cheshire eyepieces. I personally find that, to collimate my 10-inch Newtonian for imaging, my Skywatcher Quattro, I simply like to use a laser. And once I get the primary and the secondary dialed in, I will insert my camera. I'll point to a bright star or a medium bright star, and I will do a star test. I will defocus the Newtonian so I can see that donut that it creates, and if the donut is not perfectly circular, then I will do some minor adjustments on the primary mirror. And once that's dialed in, then I have concluded that I have good collimation, and we'll go ahead and continue imaging from there. But we do have a nice collimation article on our astronomy hub on our website. If you're interested in that, that's very helpful as well.
Indeed. The Astronomy Hub on the High Point Scientific website is a fantastic resource for anybody with an interest in astronomy and looking to expand their knowledge of how, not only of how the universe works, but how you can take a photograph of the universe for yourself to take home, to show to your friends and family, and post on social media. The Astronomy Hub is a great resource. We talk about lunar eclipses, solar eclipses. We talk about how to size a filter, for example. Like if you're looking to buy a solar filter from High Point Scientific, if you don't know what size solar filter you need, the calculator we have available will be able to recommend a solar filter based on the diameter of your telescope.
And a lot of those articles, they do come, like some of our What's in the Night Sky articles, they all come with videos as well along with them. For those who like the viewing experience, we have our YouTube channel and YouTube videos that go along with a lot of these articles on the Astronomy Hub. And then you have the articles for those who enjoy reading.
Indeed. So we're probably going to wrap up the live stream here in about 10 minutes. For those tuning in, again, we're just testing out our equipment here for the live stream that's going to be happening tomorrow for the annual solar eclipse. It would mean a lot to us if you're able to share this live stream with your friends and your family, get the word out, get people excited about the universe in which we live in, this incredible, exciting celestial event that'll be happening tomorrow, because, you know, not everybody gets the opportunity to see a solar eclipse, and this live stream will give you the opportunity, if you have cloudy skies, if you're not in the path of the annual solar eclipse, to be able to see the views tomorrow.
And yeah, just as a reminder, the entire United States will experience at least a partial solar eclipse. So if you have your solar eclipse glasses, go ahead and put those on and expect to see a little bit of coverage as the moon passes in front of the sun. So we're lucky to be able to experience it from the west to east coast.
It is going to be a sight to behold for sure. Now,
it's a little different. I'm sorry. Well, the experience is a little bit different than a lunar eclipse, because the sun is behind us on a lunar eclipse, and it's us on Earth passing in front of the sun's light and casting a shadow on the moon. But there we can only really see one celestial body changing. But with a solar eclipse, it's just so much more fascinating, in my opinion, because we get to watch two interactions happening 250,000 miles and 93 million miles away. Just a different perspective.
Indeed. To go over really quickly, again, the path of the eclipse tomorrow for those tuning in. The eclipse is going to begin its landfall over the United States, the annular eclipse, over the coast of Oregon, crossing over cities like Eugene and Medford. Then the eclipse will begin to head southwest into Nevada, crossing over Winnemucca and Battle Mountain. After that, the eclipse will make its way into Utah, crossing over Glen Canyon National Park, Canyonlands National Park, as well as the Navajo region of that world, before making its way into Arizona and New Mexico, where the stream is being held just outside of Santa Fe, New Mexico. And for here in Santa Fe, as well as in Albuquerque, you can expect the eclipse to begin at roughly 9:15 a.m. We will go live tomorrow at about 15 minutes before the start of the annular solar eclipse, and this will culminate in an annular eclipse beginning at 10:36 a.m. Mountain Time. After passing over my viewing location, the eclipse will move into Texas, passing over Odessa. While making its march to the Gulf Coast, it will pass over San Antonio at about 11:50 a.m. Central Time before finally heading out into the Gulf Coast over Corpus Christi, making its way to Central America. Unfortunately, those in the East Coast will be missing out on the annular eclipse. However, everyone in the United States can expect to see some sort of partial solar eclipse tomorrow. However, how much of a partial eclipse entirely depends on your viewing location. For example, if you're watching from my home state of Florida, you will see a roughly 56% solar eclipse. For folks in Michigan tuning in, for example, you might see a 40% or a 30% eclipse. So maybe just enough to be able to cast some really neat shadows in the ground, but you won't be able to see much in the way of like the light beginning to dim and things like that. Folks out in the Rust Belt or New England can expect to see roughly a 25 to 35% the sun eclipsed. That'd be for people like in Pittsburgh or New York, for example. But those just in Texas, for example, who live close to the path of the annual solar eclipse but don't live quite in it, for example, Houston, folks in Houston will see a 75% eclipse of the sun. Alrighty, well, we'll take one last call for questions. We see a question from Howard Hudson. What telescope are you using for this solar view? I'll be using a Nexstar 8SC with my MP5 or my DSLR. That is a great question. So this is actually a camera lens that is providing this view. This is a 135mm f2 camera lens that is attached to a ZWO ASI 183MC Pro. On that note, I think we are going to go ahead and wrap up the stream for today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to our pre-eclipse Q&A. It was wonderful to talk to each and every one of you. Tune in tomorrow, beginning at 9 a.m. Mountain Time, as we enjoy together a live view of an annular solar eclipse that will be brought to you live from Santa Fe, New Mexico. And we are really looking forward to showing you this beautiful celestial event tomorrow. Again, 9 a.m. Mountain Time. That will also be, I believe, 11 a.m. Eastern Time. You will see here a annular solar eclipse. So tune in to our YouTube channel, our Facebook page, where we'll be bringing those live views to you guys. On that note, thank you guys so much for tuning in today. I hope you are excited for this eclipse. I certainly am. I'm really excited to see what's going to unfold tomorrow. I was joined today by Tegan, and we will see you tomorrow for our marathon live stream beginning at 9 a.m. Tegan, do you have any last word before we wrap up?
Thank you for hosting, Kyle. I'm very excited to experience this tomorrow with everybody, and hopefully we don't have any cloud coverage over there in Santa Fe during the live stream.
Yeah, the weather forecast is we're definitely expecting clouds tomorrow, but it looks like it's going to be mostly high clouds, so fingers crossed. If it's high clouds, I can see the sun right through them. That shouldn't be a problem, but we'll see how it looks tomorrow.
Time will tell.
Alrighty, thank you all for tuning in, and always remember to keep looking up. We'll see you tomorrow. All right, Tegan, I'm just